Hey everyone, it's just a little bit after 3 o'clock. Welcome. We're here live online on Zoom for another town hall with Nicole Hamm. Nicole Hamm is a candidate for Jacksonville City Council District 4. We have a group of us gathered on Zoom. For those of you new to Zoom, please mute your microphone. It'll help with the transmission quality, both to Zoom and to live on Facebook. Again, if you're here on Zoom, use the chat box to drop us questions or comments or thoughts or ideas. I'll pull them out of the chat during the Q&A time and feed them to Keith and Nicole. If you're new to Zoom, which I think many of us are very familiar with Zoom by now, but if you're new to it, just hover on your screen and the controls will appear. We have an agenda for today. It's going to go by quick. We'll introduce the topic. We'll have the presentation of the topic, a little bit of discussion, and then some question and answer. So our topic today is hurricanes, floodplains, and insurance. And District 4, you can see this picture of Nicole. She'll probably talk a little bit more about this when she jumps on, but you know, drainage is an issue. And this is a place in District 4 that has a drainage issue on the regular, where water's not moving. As well, there's drains in District 4 where they're clogged up with debris and plants. And this just doesn't happen in business areas for our local businesses. It's also happening in our residential areas in District 4. So I'm going to hand this off to Nicole Hamm. I'm going to stop the screen share and take it away, Nicole.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, as always, for moderating our town halls. And thank you, Keith, for joining us. We've got some interesting questions and discussions that we want to talk to you specifically about. So I'm really excited to have you here. So September is National Preparedness Month. So we're promoting, being prepared and what that means to have a plan and how we can continue to navigate a better life and well-being in living in Florida, where hurricanes, flooding, all of those things are extremely prevalent. District 4 is so interesting because we are smack dab in the middle of south side of town, and you've got properties on the waterfront, you've got properties off of Plattsburgh Creek, and you've got multifamily and single family homes. And there's just a lot going on there in terms of flooding insurance, hurricane insurance, renters insurance, all of those things. So I wanted to have this town hall in the thick of hurricane season to talk about our infrastructure and how we can be better prepared and how we can plan to make sure that we're not only being safe, but we're also encouraging safety and preparedness throughout the community. So specifically for District 4, I kind of wanted to touch on, we have a lot of storm drains. And it seems to be that many of them are not operable. And that's sad because we rely on our storm drains to kind of take away our excess water so that we can continue to navigate life as normally as possible. As you saw on that photo of me, that was right outside, right on Southside Boulevard, where there is a slew of small businesses that that's something that they have to deal with on a regular basis when the rain is too heavy, or there's just consistent rain that the storm drains are clogged or not operable. So now they're dealing with rising water and people not being able to park in their parking lots. And then especially on a residential side as well. There was an article that News4Jax posted a couple months ago, and it highlighted this this website called Flood Factor. And you can see where our flood levels are and how they will be impacted over the next 30 years. So I pulled a couple zip codes from District 4, and in 32216, which is my personal zip code, as sea levels rise and weather patterns change, flood risk will increase. So approximately 1,465 properties are already at risk of flooding. And within 30 years, that number will rise to 1,906, which is not okay. Not good for our residents, not good for our city, because this is an ongoing problem, right? Back in 2010, there was a report by the Tampa Bay Times noting that we are at a significant loss of life and hundreds of millions of dollars if we get hit really bad. And we saw that with Matthew, and we saw that with Irma, and how it took so much time and money to begin to try to operate again as normal. And even with the business and having the support of the city, that's a business, but a resident, it's different on their end. And I'm sure Keith will be able to elaborate as far as the structure, as far as insurance goes with that. And then there was another one, 32246, and those properties are already about 1,552 at risk. And within 30 years, it'll be at 1,728. So this is really a problem. It's a problem because we are not investing in our infrastructure to keep our residents safe, but we're also not investing to keep our economy as strong as it could be. And one of the things that I offer is that in the new proposed budget, we have about $240 million being allocated to capital infrastructure improvements. And one of the things that I personally look forward to is how I can get a chunk of that money to help District 4, because you know, I see it even riding around and trying to connect with people. We're doing contactless lit drops. And a friend of mine and we were out by Pottsburg Creek, and we just drove, like, I think that the bottom of the car hit the water trying to drive over Pottsburg Creek. And it was raining yesterday, and it's been drizzling today. So if this is just a couple of days of rain, what does this look like if we are not spared in hurricane season and we have another Irma, or we have something worse than Irma? So, you know, one of the things that I'm looking forward to is, in addition to our roads, really focusing on our drainage system and what we can do there to either get these storm drains operable or create new ones that will be. I personally don't see the point of having a storm drain that doesn't do anything. You know, it's growing plants, and I think that's great, and I love green spaces, but that is not what it was designed for, and that is not what a business signed up for when they put their name on the lease or the ownership of that space. So, you know, all in all, throughout the city, beyond District 4, there's about 48,000 properties in Jacksonville that face substantial flood risk as we go through these next 30 years. And I'm 27 years old, so this is extremely heartfelt for me, because this is real. I'm going to see this damage in my lifetime. You know, I would not like to see increased flooding or damage or any other risk, but it seems to be that we're going that way. And now is the time to take advantage of seeing where $240 can take us, and hoping that it gives us a little bit of a buffer as we continue to navigate better practices of reducing our carbon footprint to decrease climate change, and kind of being able to better navigate and understand how the storms are going to interact and affect Jacksonville. You know, that flood factor website was just so mind-boggling to me. I couldn't believe that we were going to see an increase of 400, 500 homes be at risk. And that's just based off of what's already in place. So then that brings me to development. How can we develop if we don't have an infrastructure in place to support, you know, what we're seeing and what we're experiencing? I, for one, would not want to buy a home in a high flood risk area. I don't know what that means for my insurance. You know, I don't know what that means for me getting to and fro to work or to school or any of those other things. And I think that it's extremely important that we start having these conversations and actually hearing from residents and other people in the community about what they need. You know, $240 sounds like a lot of money. There's also quite a few districts in the city, so there's going to be a lot of, you know, pooling and all of those other things. And we have to remember that there are other parts of the city that have been experiencing this for way too long and have a lot of broken promises by the city of Jacksonville and have not seen a lot of improvements. And I think that one thing that we should be looking at in our leadership is who is going to advocate and fight to make sure that we have a piece of the pie to get something done that encourages our economy, encourages our community, and allows us to operate in a way that we need to do to be, you know, part of the community in Jacksonville. So that's one of my priorities that I stand on as a candidate. And I wanted to bring Keith in because I was actually talking to a constituent who happens to be on the call, and she lives off of Sandusky, and she has a rate for her insurance, but the person behind her has a different rate and it's a flooding issue, right? It's a sea level issue, and I just kind of wanted to touch on that because there's a lot of things that people may not know as homeowners about what that looks like as far as how to navigate flood insurance or hurricane preparedness, what you can do, and so I'm really happy to have Keith to kind of help us navigate a little bit of that. And Darcy, I probably butchered your question, so if you want to type it in the chat to make sure that I was very very clear about what I was trying to say from about it to Keith. So Keith, if you'll just kind of give us a little bit of feedback and background on insurance and is it required by law, flooding and hurricane, and what that kind of means for you and what it means for homeowners to navigate that.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, first, just want to thank you for having me on. Always enjoy just talking to people, about their insurance, but what I've learned over my many years of being in the industry, that a lot of people just don't understand their policies, whether it's even auto, home, or flood. So I always like to just start by just taking a few brief moments, just kind of going over the coverages, because I'm pretty sure once we get off the line, people are going to want to say, well, let me go look at my policy. And I always encourage people to look at their policy, especially in this time of year. The most important thing about your homeowner's insurance is your dwelling aid coverage. And your policy is basically set up off percentages off of the dwelling aid. The dwelling aid is the reconstruction costs, to rebuild the home. So if a hurricane came through and just knocked it off the foundation, this is what we would pay as an insurance company to put your home back together. So coverage A is the total amount to replace the home. Coverage B would be your separate structures. So let's say you have a shed in the backyard, anything in the backyard that is a dwelling, and most people don't realize your fence is also covered in your coverage B separate structures as well. Personal property, all of your things. If I was to pick the home up, turn it upside down and shake it around, everything that would fall out would be considered personal property. Personal property can be paid out in two different ways. One is actual cash value. Just for the sake of time, let's say I bought a TV for $100, had it for 5 years, it would depreciate. So then, they might give you $25, just for simple numbers, or you have replacement costs. I always encourage all of my clients and everybody I talk to that they should have their personal property at replacement costs. So depending on what you paid for, we would pay to replace it at that amount. So there is a difference. Replacement cost is a little bit more than actual cash value. So I always encourage people, hey, just go take a look. If you don't have it, it's a quick call to your agent, or you can call me. We definitely can get that taken care of for you. Coverage D is very important in hurricane or any other time of year. So additional living expense. So if your home is damaged due to a fire, hurricane, any particular reason, coverage D is what's paid out for you to live somewhere else, let's say a hotel, maybe rent a home. So you definitely want to make sure that you have adequate amount of coverage, just to make sure if you were away from the home for a substantial amount of time that you would have coverage for that. Coverage E, personal liability. Someone comes, slip and fall in the home. You're covered yourself, personal liability. You see a lot of times with car accidents, but people being sued for liability, but it can happen in the home. So that's always important to make sure you have adequate coverage there. Coverage F is guest medical. If someone is hurt in your home, you do have coverage there to help try to offset medical expenses. So that's pretty much just a quick rundown of all the coverages. You can reach out to me. My name is Keith Bloom with Farmers Insurance. My office is located not in District 4, but right across the bridge, right next to the Jumbo Shrimp where the football field is. And I can definitely here to answer all your questions. Deductibles. Oh, real quick. Deductibles.
Really fast.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
we have a lot of apartments in District 4 too. Is the same coverage under homeowners as renters as well?
So no, it's different. The reason is because with the homeowners policy, you are pretty much covering your home. But with the renters, you don't own the building. So the main components of the renters policy is your personal property, all the computer, clothes, everything like that, and then the liability aspect. You don't really have to worry about a dwelling and separate structures because all those things are owned by the apartment complex.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. And just a quick deductibles. This is the perfect time to talk about deductibles. The hurricane deductible is the #1 on the list. Industry standard, 2% of the dwelling. So if your home is valued at 100,000, then it'll be a 2,000 hurricane deductible. Depending on the value of the home, you do have the option to buy down your deductible. But 9 times out of 10, if you don't ask, your hurricane deductible is going to be 2% of the dwelling. And if there's a named hurricane somewhere, if it has a hurricane name, you're automatically going to get the hurricane deductible. So that's the biggest thing people say. Okay, go ahead.
The hurricane deductible, is that based on the appraised value? What value is that hurricane deductible 2% based on?
Okay, good question. So the 2% is based off the dwelling amount. So whatever the insurance company has your total home valued at, that's where the 2% is calculated from.
Thank you.
No problem. I guess flood insurance, that's the big one, since we've been talking about that. All flood policies are backed by the federal government. So all of the rates pretty much are going to be the same throughout companies because they actually set the price. But another thing that people don't really realize, if you have a flood certificate, that's a way to really I guess get the true price. I've seen people who've had flood policies for many, many years and they haven't taken the time to get a flood certificate because it actually calculates the estimate of how far you are above the floodplain. And I definitely seen people get savings on that.
Keith, who issues the flood certificate?
So an elevation company, they will come in and they'll have to survey the property. So I don't really suggest any company over the other ones, but any type of surveying company, they have the capability to create an elevation certificate for you.
Thank you.
No problem.
So, Keith, so I know that, for example, people at the beach have a way higher, way more intense policy rather than those that are more inland. And one thing about the South Side is we are about half an hour from the beach. So, and we've got a lot of creeks and waterways. So we tend to kind of be forgotten about as far as insurance until you start to look for a home. And then like when I bought the home from my mom, my condo, and I was like, wow, like this is a lot of money that you want me to pay. And I'm on the 2nd floor, but because of where I live, I'm near Pottsburg Creek and a lot of waterways. So there's like in my evacuation zone was mentioned about why my price was what it was. Does that have anything to do with insurance? Like where you decide to settle, right, in your evacuation zone based off the city mandates? Does that become an account when crafting a policy?
So your location is the #1 determining factor, on the policy itself. But the flood zones have nothing to do with the evacuation city zones. The federal government is behind everything flood related. So they create the flood maps. So depending on what flood zone you're in, the rates can be elevated. So if you're in a preferred risk, I think right now, don't hold me to it, if you're in a preferred risk or not a really high threat, it's about $600 for the year for flood. but it all depends on the different zones, the higher possible risk of having a flood, you're going to see an increase.
Okay, so as we have heard from just kind of statistics about how flooding risk could increase, so should we be evaluating insurance and every year? Like, I mean, I know that we go over the policy with our insurance and all of that things, but where do we determine where we need more, where we need less? Like, how do we aggregate all that information? I mean, because I wouldn't have known any of this if I didn't, start figuring out what's going on with the infrastructure here. And then now I'm seeing that there could be very much so increased risk. How do people get a hold of that information? And like, are you guys following FEMA and, the Hurricane Ready and Jax Ready and all of those places to determine how much coverage we need so homeowners are safe?
So every homeowner's policy, all the companies have their own tools, a reconstruction tool. So we take in all the properties, all the factors of your home, whether it's brick or vinyl or stucco, and we put it into a calculator. And then that calculator takes the current price of materials, the current price of labor, and we calculate a reconstruction cost. And that's how we make sure that we're covering the full replacement costs of the home. Another thing, I get the call at least once a week. They say, well, I owe $100,000, but you have my home insured for $200,000. Well, we're insuring the reconstruction costs and not how much you owe on the home. So that's very, very important that people understand that, hey, you might say that's too much coverage, but really, if the point of insurance is to put you back to where you were before the claim happened. So if we insured your home for what you owed and then something happened to the home, then you would be at a disadvantage. So we have that reconstruction tool in place to really calculate the value. And like I said, each percentage or coverage is based off the percentage of the dwelling.
Awesome. And I will say that I don't have farmers, but my insurance is very great about letting me know when the storms are coming and like just sending a little courtesy email about how to be prepared and how to plan, God forbid anything happen, but they are very considerate and courteous about that. I've got USAA, so, they're great. I'm sure farmers is just as great. Yeah.
We send out the email and text too, just saying, but very, very important thing. I almost forgot. Claim handling. There's a difference between companies. Of course, I work for farmers, but I just want to highlight one of the advantages that we do have that most companies don't. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to your insurance agent, just ask them, hey, how does my company handle claims? One of the highlights for farmers, one of the reasons why I decided to come over to farmers is the claim handling. We have what you call staff adjusters. So this came into play back when Matthew and Irma all hit, the difference between the two. So with farmers having staff adjusters, anybody that you talk to throughout the claim will actually work for farmers. So that gives me as an insurance agent an advantage when helping you walk through the claims process, because everybody that I'm talking to and working with to put you back together, we're all on the same team. And Farmers is one of the few companies in the state of Florida that has staff adjusters. So then you look at other companies, let's say a hurricane hit or like a big natural disaster. They start flying in all these adjusters from all over the country to come and assess your claim. They're only here for a limited amount of time. Also, they get paid by how many claims they see. With staff adjusters, they're on a salary, whether it's a storm or not, they're only gonna get their salary. So with these independent adjusters, then they have to file a report, and then they have to send it to the company, and then the company reviews it. And let's say they left something out or didn't do anything. Now homeowners are left fighting with the company and the adjuster is long gone. So with a staff adjuster, one of our number one things that all of our clients really like is they have a $50,000 check writing authority. So when our adjuster comes to your home, we're leaving you with the check, versus some companies who have those independent adjusters, they don't have the opportunity to write checks on the company's behalf. So now you're waiting 30, 60, 90 days. What's going on with my claim? I haven't heard from anybody. We've kind of just cut the middleman out. So at least, you know, when we come out, we're leaving with money so you can at least start the repair process. If the claim is above $50,000, then we'll give you that first 50, and then we'll work with the inside people and we'll work with them to get you the rest of the money that you're owed, you know, to put your home back together.
Here's a question that's come in privately, and I'm going to do my best to summarize it because it's been like a back and forth. So this is to both Keith and Nicole, and you guys maybe can ping pong off of this question and how it would be handled from a city infrastructure standpoint and then an insurance standpoint. So scenario, let's just set up this hypothetical scenario that this individual has presented, and you have a home. And then downstream or upstream, you know, because we have waterways throughout Florida, there's a new development that goes in. And, you know, the city creates, you know, infrastructure drainage that flows, you know, everything's flowing, right, in a pattern towards the ocean, towards the river, like we're moving water. And it increases the flow, right? This new development increases the flow through your neighborhood, but you're not considered in a flood zone. You know, you're not rated that, but then you're getting erosion and flooding. You know, I know there's some sort of conversation you can have with the city. I'm sure that can take a very long time. Keith, is there anything in a homeowner's policy that could potentially address that?
So unfortunately, there isn't. When I think back to either it was Matthew or Irma, a lot of people who have been living in their home 40, 50, 60 years actually got flooded that hurricane, and they weren't in the flood zone. So a lot of clients, well, not even my clients, but a lot of people that I do know, they were affected, and they didn't have flood insurance because it never floods there. So you have to have a flood policy to have flood coverage, whether you're in the flood zone or not in the flood zone. Without that coverage, your regular homeowner company won't pay for the claim. So the general rule of thumb that I educate all my clients on: homeowners covers top down, flood covers bottom up. So all the water and everything that comes down, wind and everything, top down, your homeowners covers. Bottom up, water comes in, it won't be covered. So now more than ever, I encourage people to have a flood policy.
Yeah, and it's probably important to keep track of like the aspects that Nicole is tracking, which is new development in the district. And do you want to speak to that and infrastructure and drainage, Nicole?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that could ultimately hold Jacksonville back. We have to invest in our infrastructure. People are not going to choose to live somewhere where they're constantly having issues of how to be in transit. No one wants to ride over roads that have potholes, and no one wants to ride on unpaved roads, and no one wants to live in an area where when we live in Florida and we have an active storm season, that they're constantly dealing with flooding or erosion. And, you know, that's one of the things that people look at when they look at where they're going to move and where they're going to settle. You know, and I think that what we have to remember is that being more in town, it's different than the beach, right? Like, people will put up with a lot of stuff just to see the pretty waves. They're not going to do that in town. They're not going to do that on Southside Boulevard or Beach Boulevard. And as beautiful as those waterways are, and where the waterfront is, like Love Grove and Riviera Manor, that's beautiful scenery. But, you know, that's not enough. I need to know that we're constantly making sure that I'm not filing a claim every year or twice a year, you know. And I think that I'm hoping to see that with this capital infrastructure improvement, that there is a plan to address that. I know that we all need roads and we all need stop signs and traffic lights, but we also live in a city that has just a very active storm season, and we need to make sure that there is enough drainage, or that we are constantly evaluating the drainage. You know, and that's one thing that I would even give a call to action to residents. You know, call your elected official, call your city council and say, hey, like, have you noticed that like there's very little drainage down Pottsburg Creek? Yeah, I'm like, what does that look like for me in the next 3 years? Because like, if you tell me you're not going to fix it, I might not be staying in Pottsburg Creek much longer, you know? And like, we want people to be here. We want people to raise their kids here and develop their life here. But like, we have to make sure we're giving them the resources to do that effectively. And one of those things is investing in our drainage system.
Thank you. We're almost out of time. I just wanted to, I'll hand it right back to Nicole in just a moment. I just want to share what's coming up with Nicole and the campaign. So coming up on this Wednesday, we have trivia night, and it's only $10. So if you've not played trivia online, join us. You can register to do it by taking a peek at our Facebook page, the Nicole Hamm, candidate for City Council, District 4, Facebook page, and the events section. All the details are there. As well, on Saturday, there's Pedaling for Progress, which is a bicycle tour through District 4. We hope you'll join us. Again, that's only $10. And what a great way to get to know your own community and meet your neighbors through a spatially distanced event. We would love for you to volunteer for Nicole's campaign if you're interested in the city being a vibrant place full of change. Nicole is a candidate of change. Lots of ways to volunteer. You can literature drop safely. You can also join us by phone banking. We have power hours on Sunday afternoons. And also there's sign waving. All of that information about how to volunteer begins with you filling out an application on the website or the contact form. And once you do either one of those, someone from Nicole's campaign team will reach back out to you within 24 hours. As well, if you donate to Nicole's campaign, you'll also be in the loop of receiving regular information about District 4 and Nicole's campaign via weekly newsletters. So Nicole is running for Jacksonville City Council. We hope you'll vote on November 3rd, and we hope you vote for Nicole Hamm. I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand this back to Nicole for a final farewell and wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to give Keith an opportunity to plug his information, his phone number, email, address, as well as my own. And we can, if you have any other questions or any other concerns that we can either tag team it, or if you have anything else different about the community or District 4, I'm happy to share that as well. So Keith, would you, plug in your number, email? How can we get in touch with you?
All right. Once again, my name is Keith Blue, Farmers Insurance. My office is located downtown Jacksonville, not that far from District 4. My telephone number is 904-667-3300. Once again, my office number is 904-667-3300. And my email address is K as in kite, blue, like the color, BLUE, @farmersagent.com.
Awesome, thank you. And my email address, if anybody wants it or needs it, it is Nicole Hamm, my name, the number 4, the word district, and then the number 4 again @gmail.com. And even if you send something to me, I'm happy to pass it along to an expert. I don't know everything, so I try to pass this all to experts on the things that I don't know, but I'm happy to share any information that I have or any thoughts that I have about anything. And I just, want to thank you all for joining us this Sunday, and to continue to join us every Sunday right here at 3 p.m. And we look forward to earning your support and your vote this November. And just thank you so much.